and begin.
Oh, thank you. Recording in progress. Yeah. Today's topic is the lesson from the course that we had yesterday, and it's called
The power of decision
yeah,
is my own.
yeah, the power of decision is my own. This means that however we appear to be is what we decided to be like. We are deciding all the time without realizing that we are deciding. So, in other words, what you think about is becomes your decision to be. Can we go from there?
Yes,
I don't want to think about too much what to say because I want it to be as spontaneous as possible.
okay, well, I'm going to read the first section from the lesson. It's lesson 152. It's from A Course in Miracles workbook, and it's called The Power of Decision is My Own. Now, these statements are very controversial, and you might not believe them at first. So it says, no one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. No one suffers pain except his choice elects this state for him. No one can grieve, nor fear, nor think him sick unless these are the outcomes that he wants. And no one dies without his own consent.
And no one dies without his own consent. And this has been proven quite a bit lately, that there is always a wish, however unconscious it may be. So this means, this entails our ability to be true to our feelings, how we feel from moment to moment, that we are making decisions we don't even know we are deciding. I'm just trying to think of
It sounds very complicated. It's actually simple.
So complicated, yeah.
It's actually simple when you recognize what's really going on.
Yeah, one time I was walking down the building here, and there was a guy. He was very, very loud and obnoxious. And immediately I made a decision that he's obnoxious. And it bothered me throughout until I realized that I made a decision, not because he was obnoxious.
That's right. You decided he was obnoxious.
I decided.
So he was obnoxious.
Yeah. So so I carried it over all the way to where I was going, which I forgot where I was going now. I think it was London Drugs. Yeah. And it was only when I got there that somebody's feet approached me, and he was very nice. And I decided that he was very nice.
And so he was very nice.
Yes. And that overcome the obnoxiousness. So the whole point, what we're saying here, is that we're deciding all the time how to feel. People often get the idea that how can I make my life work, or how can I be happy, or how can, not realizing that we are deciding already how to feel, even as we ask the question.
Right, because if you say, how can I be happy? It's a statement hidden behind there that says, I'm unhappy.
That's right.
And so when we believe that.
So we made a decision that we are unhappy. You see? Got it? So all the time we're in more charge than we think we are, but we're not aware. And this is the key point. We are not aware of what we're telling ourselves all the time, moment to moment. You see, we are freer than we realize. And happiness, like one time I was asked a group of people, what is it that you want more than anything in life? And some people came up with many goals, many ideas to achieve. But then when you achieve them, how do you feel? You feel happy, right? So what you really wanted was to be happy. That's what you wanted more than anything. But then again, are you happy because you got what you wanted? You see? Not really. Happiness is not something that is based on a goal. It's not something that you strive to achieve and then you get and then you're happy. You're happy only for a short time. But the happiness that stays with you all the time is not a subject. See, this is it. When we think of happiness and love, they're both. What is the difference between happiness and love?
I'd say happiness is sort of like it's almost like a solo thing. I'm happy, whereas love seems to involve a sharing.
What more sharing,
So,
right?
so really,
in
love
truth,
is the sharing of happiness.
that's
essentially.
exactly it.
Yeah.
So the two are one,
The two are one.
right?
Because there's only
So,
one.
yeah. So in truth, we have decided how we are going to feel moment to moment all the time. And then we blame circumstances. I am unhappy because this happened. I am unhappy because of this or that. But in truth, we have made decision to become that. Yeah. Read something from the book.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll continue reading where we're at. Okay, oops, sorry. A second. Okay, so it says here, nothing occurs but represents your wish, which is what we're talking about. And nothing is omitted that you choose. Here is your world, complete in all details. Here is its whole reality for you. And it is only here where salvation is, which is how we can escape from this seemingly difficult, suffering world. When we recognize that we made the choice, that's how we escape. We have to see that we're the ones with this power. And it sounds tricky and difficult, but it's actually really, really simple once we get to what one has to do. We don't have to realize, hey, I'm love, hey, I'm peace, hey, I'm joy. That's not what we have to do.
Yes.
All we have to recognize is that the voice in our head that's making these decisions, that's saying, how can I be happy, is actually saying, I'm unhappy. So the first thing we need to do is challenge it. Whose voice is that?
Yes.
That's not our voice. That's the ego's voice.
That's the ego's voice.
The ego is like a parasite that sits on top of us and seems to run our lives, but it doesn't exist. It's an illusion.
So in fact, as we decide to be, just to be, not being this or being that, that becomes our true nature.
That's right.
And that immediately becomes a relaxation, a being happy, being love. Yeah.
Yesterday, I tweeted out this statement, and it's really beautiful. And it's on my Twitter account. It says, understanding comes the moment we recognize ourselves as not the ego. All other perspectives besides this are false. Heaven's arrival undoes all suffering forever. So it's just that simple. For instance, if you have a fight, like let's say we had a fight.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't have a fight. That was our egos fighting. But we are never fought.
That's right.
So we don't even have to remember we're love. All we have to do is recognize what we're not.
Not we're not.
And that's the power of decision.
Exactly.
Right. And Kenneth Wapnick called it the decision maker. He says that's the only power we have. And that's the only free will we have. Which
in other words, straight looking at what is.
That's right. And knowing it's not us. You know. And yesterday we listened to this tape done by Anthony Cheney, which was interview with Dave Godman talking about Ramadan. And he said exactly the same thing the Course says. He says the only free will is this: you either identify with yourself as a separate body in a world filled with separate entities who have their own consciousness and their own volition, and you listen to the ego, which is constantly at war with everything out there, or we recognize that that isn't who we are and couldn't have been who we are.
That's right. You know, I keep going back to the time when I had, oh, sorry, I'm moving the table here. When I had that realization, you know, the hospital. Yeah. And when I was in the hospital and out of the body, I saw the doctor, the nurse, the patients. I knew each one what they were like. I knew what they were thinking, feeling, what they loved, whether they were married, had children. Everything was complete in each one. But did I say each one after the other? Because when I lived in that point of being out of the body, I lived in timeless essence, right? There was no time. So therefore, all that I saw was myself all the time. But the interesting thing is that I saw myself in them, so therefore I was them. But at that moment that I was them, I wasn't thinking I am them.
Was there any judgment at that point in time?
There was no judgment, was not possible.
So that was the oneness.
Right. There was a oneness, and that oneness made me feel so alive. But if I said it made me feel alive, then there goes a lie, because there was no me who's feeling this. There is just I am. I am. And that I am is the oneness. So all we're ever trying or learning is to be the one we really are. And the one we really are is the one. Is the one itself. Not this person or that person. And there is really no you or me as separate entities. But there is only this one being that sees itself complete. So even the question does not arise because he never had a beginning or an end. You see, sometimes that's why I say to myself, I use the word God often. And many people think I'm being religious. I am not religious at all. But I love the word God, because God represents the oneness, the one consciousness of the entire, not just world, but worlds, universe itself, totality. We are one being appearing as trillions and trillions of forms, seemingly individualized, but they are what we are not. And it's so beautiful when you begin to feel that all we're learning is to go back to this to the state of wholeness, where even I cannot say I am the wholeness. I am. And that I am is the most complete thing that you can ever realize. But as long as you make yourself separate, an individual even, okay, then that itself is the suffering. That is the dilemma.
And that's the only decision that we have the power to make.
And that is the only decision we have the power to make.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
Because then everything occurs in us. This one consciousness is everything's occurring in us.
Everything is okay.
And if our nature is that of love, that of peace, and that of joy, then everything that occurs in us, once we recognize who we really are, which is the spirit, is also that.
That's
and
right.
Therefore, this is now love.
That's right.
It always was.
Yeah.
But we saw it through the eyes of an ego before.
Yeah.
The ego says, no, it's old, it's outdated. The ego's got a lot of words for this, but it's love.
Yeah. Like today, we were out. It was very, very hot. And but where we were, there was next to a street, and the guy bicycle came to a halt, and his thing went out.
All I know is he came to it. He jumped off his bike suddenly and ran back because I guess he lost his water bottle. And then next thing I know, he came over and he turned his bike up and he was struggling a little.
Struggling to put
his chain came off.
In, yeah. And then you went out and you put his chain in.
Well, you know, it's well, I just went over and I said, can I help you with, is there anything I can help you with? I thought maybe I could just hold something for him.
Yeah.
But somehow he said, I have no idea how this works. And I said to him, I have no idea how this works. I said, let's try together. And next thing we know, he's biking away.
He went away happy. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's all very, very simple.
It's very simple. It's all love.
So yeah, it's all love.
It's all love.
Yeah. Beautiful.
For instance, like when you have an opinion that, if you think you have an opinion that differs from another opinion, whether you read it, you see it on the news, or it's somebody you meet, remember this, the opinion isn't you. It's actually trying to create conflict between you and your beloved brother, because in fact, we're all madly in love with each other. It's just these judgments and opinions are creating a sense of barrier, and they're not even us. They're not. And that's the cool thing, is we're not guilty for judging, because we're not the ones judging. It's the ego.
That's right.
We've simply made the mistake of identifying as us.
And identifying as us makes one mistake over another all the time. That's because it becomes selfish. Yeah.
And it's not us.
And
right?
It's not us, right?
Because as the Course says, this beautiful quote, you cannot judge. This is the Course's quote, and I'm going to add something to it. It says, you cannot judge. You merely can believe the ego's judgments, all of which are false. But another reason why you can't judge is because it's not in our nature. Our true nature is that of love. So if what judges is not us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It made me think of Wei's daughter, Iris, you know, when she was sleeping and she never saw me before. And then all of a sudden she wakes up from her sleep and the first thing she sees is me. And I was looking at her lovingly, of course, you know, how can you love an angel like that? But she smiled. She had this smile on her face, and I never forgot it since Friday, since it happened. So the truth is that we are that innocent, though. You know, we are that
Everyone
innocent.
is.
Everyone
Every
is.
brother.
Yeah.
Every sister.
And that's why we can love everyone, you know, because we're all made up of that same thing. There is no separation at all. So if there was one secret of life, there is no secret. Everything is one. We think there is a separation. We think there are many people. We think there is time and space. But it is time and space that gives us the idea that there is a separation. You see, that there are people, that there are things happening, but there's nothing ever happening. There's this eternal being that you are. And that eternal being is the highest joy, the highest beauty, the highest heaven. And it is the light itself. And truth, there is no you, really, but this light, this being.
So once you recognize yourself to not be the ego, you no longer have any defenses. You have no need for a defense because it's not you.
That's right.
What defends, it's the ego defending itself. It's not you defending.
Right.
And so see, that was today's lesson. Yesterday's lesson was the power of decision is my own. Today's lesson, which continued on from that, recognizing what power it is we have to decide, is that in my defenselessness, my safety lies, which is also extremely beautiful.
Defenselessness.
That's right. And you were telling me about a dream you had last night.
Yeah.
That was related to that.
Yes. Yeah. And it was exactly. And incidentally, every night I have dreams. And these dreams have a lot to do with what I usually experience, you know, spirits around, etc. Yeah. But this particular dream, I was all red. My hair was red. Everything was red.
I thought you were green, honey.
Was I green? Did I tell you I was green? I think you told me you were green. I forgot. Okay. And and there were some red people and some blue people. But what happened is that as they got along, they found the blues didn't get along with the reds and the reds didn't get along with the yellows. And they began to fight each other because they didn't like that particular thing that they wear, you see. So they were denying the very thing that they couldn't help being. And so there was conflict all the time. When I got up in the morning, I could hardly wait to listen to the lesson of the day that came from the Course in Miracles. And it was exactly what I had dreamt.
So it was talking about defenselessness.
It was talking about defenselessness and how things appear to be.
So what we truly are doesn't need defending.
Doesn't need defending at all. Yeah.
So if we find ourselves defensive, it's not us, it's the ego.
Right. And that brings all the misery in the world. And the moment you begin to act from the ego, then you begin to lack things. Your health suffers. Even financially, you become needy. Everything starts to go against you. But the moment you become trusting, that very trust itself protects you in ways that we cannot begin to understand. You see, Jesus said to his disciples too, because they said, well, what can we do? What can we preach? Well, how do we live? And he says, go, don't think about it. And it all happens by itself. Right? And then that trust, as you live in trust, everything goes along the way it should be.
So all forgiveness basically boils down to this decision to believe the ego or not, really.
That's ultimately. Right.
And then trust is just the natural flow.
But what is an ego? Thinking you are separate from another.
That's right. False belief.
False belief that we are all different. See, all my life I studied psychology, and I also studied enneagrams. I also studied numerology, astrology, and those 4 tapes: melancholic, phlegmatic,
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, these are the 4 types of people that exist in the world.
According to psychology?
No,
Or-
according to, I forgot the author of them, but they were very popular. Choleric, phlegmatic.
But those are all ego types, right?
Well, everything is ego type.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Enneagram, the astrology, everything is an ego type, right?
Of which all is.
Like, for example, the time we are born, we
Mhm.
go through 7 years of adjustment to the family that we are with. And then we take on characteristics of that family, and then the characteristics of the nationality that we happen to be in, etc., etc. And we form our character according to our conditioning. But it is all conditioning
Until we recognize the truth.
until we recognize the truth that we are life itself. Yeah. And then the conditioning begins to fall away. So we realize, why aren't I happy? I'm always needing something. I'm never happy. I never this, never that. You cannot be happy because you're always trying to be something.
Right.
You see? Yeah.
So
So happiness comes when you stop trying to be something and be nothing.
right. So like for instance, you're an Aquarius, right?
Right.
And I'm a Taurus, right?
Right.
The Tauruses, Aquariuses get along.
As a rule, they don't.
Right. So we get
Yeah.
along because so our
Oh,
egos
yeah.
don't get along, but what we really are does. Because like you said,
Yeah.
once you recognize who you are, all of that goes away.
All that goes away.
Because it's not you
Yeah.
anymore. You're
Yeah,
no longer
that's right.
identified.
Well, there's another thing that
Yeah.
happens when you stop trying to be something,
Mhm.
okay, and you let everything fall away. What happens when you allow everything to fall away? You learn to be you, and you'll discover you in a new way that you have become like a child.
Like Iris.
I remember
Way's daughter.
the 3 states that
that Ken talked about.
Ken talked
Ken
about.
Wapnick,
Ken
yeah.
talked, yeah,
I think it also came from Nietzsche originally.
it came from Nietzsche. Yeah.
So it
yeah.
was camel.
First, there's the camel, and there's the average person in the street. They follow religion, they follow family, they follow customs, they follow the country, they follow everything. They're accustomed.
This can also apply to stages of our own growth, right?
Oh,
At
yeah,
some
oh,
point in
yes.
our life, we're
They
camel.
do, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So we trust.
And then you become a
the
lion.
outside world.
The lion is what we are in, mostly in the States, Canada. We want to make money. We want to achieve importance. We want to go someplace. We want to be this. We want to be that.
We want to
We're
be
never
enlightened.
happy. And we want to be enlightened at the same time. Yeah. And you go through that. Finally, you wake up and you become a child. And the child is the emptiness of innocence.
Right. So emptiness and egolessness
Are the same.
is our nature.
Of our nature.
Our nature. So
Our
so
nature.
emptiness can't judge, right?
Emptiness cannot judge.
It can't have an opinion.
What is
It
that?
can't have an opinion.
It doesn't want to. Yeah. Yeah. But the world cannot exist because it needs people to vote. It needs people to do things. Like, for example, now everybody's getting an injection, right, from the
Vaccination.
vaccination.
A lot of people.
Yeah. And they suggest that you go and get it too.
And they're giving you rewards now. I just read in the
Right,
news,
you see?
free booze for people who over 21 who get an injection.
Right. So this is always happening. We're not saying that's wrong. We are saying that we are conditioned, you see. I had a girlfriend, and she had a young daughter. She was the sweetest thing. And in school, she had to have an injection. She got this injection, and that very same day, she became autistic. She began to cry and scream all the time. And then her mother, which was my girlfriend at the time, she went everywhere to find, how to fight this so that she can get some money to treat her child. But her child is still autistic to this day.
So in that case,
Yeah.
in the case of somebody like we just read here today, that no one could suffer unless it's his own decision. So in that case, she was suffering because her child had autism.
That's right.
Right. So in that sense, she was still chose to experience herself as a separate person who was a
So,
mother who had to fight
that's
against
right.
the school
That's
system.
right. Nothing
Right.
happens by chance.
Nothing happens by
No,
chance.
no. That's
Yeah.
right. That's another thing.
Right.
And this is why we need to go along with whatever happens.
And love is the answer.
And love is the only
Just
answer.
trust.
In fact, the truth is only
Yeah.
one. It's
Yeah.
called love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
Love.
what you know what the Holy Spirit told me, I think 2 years ago. It said, if somebody tells me something, believe it's the truth. So they come back to me the next day and said, yesterday when I told you this,
Yeah.
I lied.
Yeah.
Believe that they're telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the eternal game until we wake up and become the child. And when we become the child, we have reached the ultimate, the innocent child, you know, which is love, which is innocence, which is, yeah, harbor no ill will, do not judge people, so on. Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting too is because, let me just read this as well. This is something else. Actually, I wrote it yesterday, but I don't quite remember it. It says that, okay, when we recognize ourselves as not the ego and not the judgmental voice in our head, we see the truth of ourselves as forever innocent, along with all our brothers at the same time.
Oh, that is so beautiful. What did you?
Right here. I wrote it yesterday.
Okay.
I was inspired by yesterday's lesson. It came out. It was so beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. Are there any questions at all that you're probably wanting to explore?
Everybody looks quiet.
Everybody's quiet. Yes.
Well, Laura had a question regarding India. I don't know if she wants to ask it again or ask it herself.
Okay.
Laura,
Yes,
I was referring to your
Yes.
question related to your, here we go. Go ahead, Laura.
Well, you were talking about your NDE again. I was wondering, like, once you've experienced that level of, is there no way to maintain that?
Actually, that state is in all of us, but we just haven't arrived at it yet. It's a natural state. When I talk to people about my NDE, I find that it's very, very hard to explain it, because when an NDE happens, you're not living in time and space. And there's one thing in the world that is a very complex thing, extremely complex, and it's time and space again. But everything in our world is dictated by time and space. You see? So so everything is beginning and ending. But in truth, nothing begins and nothing ends. In fact, there was never a beginning or an ending. It is all one. I like to call it God, really, because it's the perfection of being. And to me, when I think of God, I think of the wholeness of all of us together as one. And so that's the natural state. But the question you've asked, I don't know how to answer that. Can we be? We are that state. You see, the moment you realize that you're not living in time and space at all, there is no up or down or sideways. You can be wherever you want to be at any time. There is no such thing as wrong or right or bad or good.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Course says people, this state, a lot of people see it at the moment of death, which is the case of an NDE, and then return to share it with others. And then it goes on to say some people get it through spiritual experiences or mystical experiences. And then it says, and others will get there through practicing forgiveness in the Course.
Oh, that's an important one.
That's
yes,
right. And forgiveness is seeing we're not the ego.
That's right.
That's the goal of the Course, is to get us there right now.
Yeah. Because many people
Yeah.
have asked also, they have asked me, do I have to have an NDE experience in order to learn? Well, no, not really. There is a way, and the Course of Miracles tells us, and it's very, very important. See, all the time we're making up our minds how we're going to be moment to moment. You know, it's happening without realizing we're doing it. But the thing, okay, what am I trying to say here? What did I say last?
We're talking about how to maintain the sense that you get an NDE and it comes to you through through a near body. You
See, there's no way that one can explain an NDE. When people try to explain their NDE, they use their own words, yeah, but it's something that they've experienced, that once they get back to the body, the conditioning gets back again. Okay, so they forget that in that moment that they were beyond time and space, they were complete. They knew everything that there is to know in the universe. All knowledge was available because all knowledge is in spirit. But when you are physical,
see, they're believing, in a sense, they've come back, and maybe they don't have something here that allows them to, their ego comes back, and they think it's them, and that's the mistake.
yes, but you can't, you see, yeah. Like, for example, I can't help living in time, but I've realized that time doesn't exist. Time cannot be real because I had two NDE experiences, and in both of them, I lived in beyond time. But now, I live with time all the time. I carry a watch, you see? So we're conditioned that way, and you begin to think in those terms. So it's a very hard thing to explain how to be timeless. Well, you are already timeless in true essence. There were so many people that tried to live the timeless essence, the timeless state. Like one woman, one time she walked the whole earth, the Peace Pilgrim.
The Peace Pilgrim? Yeah, I heard her name, but I'm not quite sure what her. What...
Also, Krishnamurti too, not Yuji Krishnamurti, the other
Jiddu
Krishnamurti too. He lived that way too.
Timeless.
Timeless, yeah. And he never bothered to buy food or go to a restaurant or anything. He never carried any money, but people would invite him in and he would eat and he would sleep and then keep on walking and lived that way. And he was able to do it. Why? Because he believed he could. Because once you begin to trust life, automatically life will give you that which you are trusting. But what I wanted to get to is the importance of the course, where it says you learn all the best lessons that you need through forgiveness. Now, forgiveness means that the way you are feeling now, if you're miserable or unhappy, there's nothing wrong with you most of the time. It's just that you decided to be that way. You might say, but I didn't decide. Somebody offended me, or somebody did this, somebody did that. Well, it comes up to the same thing. Okay, however you're feeling it because you somehow or other accepted it as the truth. So, so the key factor is that sometimes you can't help feeling these things, but you can forgive them. And forgive means there is the realization that how I'm feeling is not the way I want to feel.
Right, it's the ego.
Right. And so moment to moment, you keep forgiving all the time. I find myself things to forgive about, 30, 40 things a day. Something happens, so I offend someone or something this happened and that happened. And all I can do is forgive it so that I don't carry it in me, you see? But at the same time, I find that this is happening over and over and over and over again. So I forgive myself all the time. Who was it that said, oh yeah, the one that wrote the book, Gary Renard wrote the book called The Disappearance of the Universe. And he was asked how he lives everyday life. And he says, I've lived through forgiveness, forgiving myself 50, 100 times a day. You remember that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He calls it just another, everything that every stress that comes his way, he calls just another forgiveness opportunity.
Just a forgiveness opportunity. So that's the best way to learn, is to always forgive, because when you forgive, you go back to your natural state of being, just like a child. You see, a child forgives so readily. I remember, I remember reading a book written by a psychiatrist, yeah. And he had a dog which he adored, and at one point he was so angry for some reason or other, which I forget. And at my age, I keep forgetting things all the time, but that's okay. That's part of it.
See, even that. You have no age. You're ageless.
No.
Yeah.
And this man, the psychiatrist, got so mad for some reason, he kicked his dog. And he kicked him so hard that the dog let out a yelps of pain. 5 minutes later, the dog came back and started licking him, kissing him. And he said, my God, that's a lesson in love. You know? It touches me even now when I recall it. So even a dog sometimes forgives more than we humans do. How do animals learn to forgive?
I don't know.
I guess because they're loved.
I don't know. My theory is puppies are actually angels. That's my theory.
Yeah,
But I don't know,
yeah.
because they seem
So
so pure.
I
forgiveness.
think they have
if-
less.
If you ever have
Because
questions,
they don't have a thought process.
Yeah,
I,
they don't have a
I
thought
think
process.
animal has
Yeah.
less.
yeah, okay, we can
Yeah.
say it that way. They don't have a thought process. It is
They
that
have less
ego.
distractions. Yeah.
less. Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's more
I
innocence.
think they realize their ego only when they're hungry and they're afraid of their safety.
Is that
Yeah.
ego? I don't think that's ego. Is it?
Yeah. But we can return back to that innocence by forgiving ourselves, you know. And by forgiving ourselves moment to moment, it becomes so beautiful, you know. Oh, it's so great because you, in a way, you start forgetting the ego, really, because the ego always wants to be in control.
And it's tricky.
Oh, very, very tricky. Yeah, and gets offended very easily.
What
Yeah.
what does it mean to forgive oneself logistically? Like beyond sitting there and going, okay, I forgive you for being a dingman. I mean, logistically, what does that entail?
I have a good example. Burt and I had a little row this morning, remember, when we first got up? And then we came to the realization that it wasn't us fighting, it was our egos fighting. And the moment we
Yeah.
saw that,
Because it had to do
we're
with my
back in
dream.
love.
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
back in love. So
Yeah.
it really ultimately is getting you to the point where you recognize it's not you. You're not the one
Yeah.
with the opinion. And so you're innocent. And so is
Yeah.
your brother.
Always see yourself as innocent and loving, because that is your natural state. You see, you know, just like a dog is loving, is sweet. It's its natural state. Yeah. Yeah, when we get back to natural state, there is nothing really to do. You know, there are no rituals. There is no church to belong to. There is no religion to study. These are all conditioned by man's minds. In truth, there is none of that. There's only love. There's only love. The way Krishnamurti, sorry, my teacher,
Ramana Maharshi.
Ramana Maharshi was so simple. He realized all the secrets of life in one moment when he was 16. He became terribly afraid of.
Yeah, how do I get some of that?
What's that?
How do I get some of that? That's what I'd like.
Yeah.
We found this incredible video by Dave Godman talking about the teachings of
Yeah,
Ramadan.
yeah,
It was so
yeah.
succinct. I'll send you a link after, okay?
Yeah,
Laura?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Give her a link.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give her that.
You can
But-
send it through the
Yeah,
email.
yeah, I can email to her. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah.
super, super. Yeah,
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
yeah, and it teaches you how to be, you know. Another thing is that no matter what work you do, no matter how you live, when you start allowing yourself to be who you are, everything comes easier. Everything. Because there's no obstacle. The only obstacle that we have is our ego mind. It's always controlling us, always making us unhappy. And all we ever want is to be happy.
Mhm.
You know. Instead of kicking the pants, eh?
Mhm. Yeah, the ego is very tricky. It'll tell us something like it takes time to awaken. If you actually hear it once, just actually hear the truth once from beginning to end, you're there.
Yes.
But the ego's fighting you. Every sentence that you read or towards finding the truth, it negates it, it turns
Right.
it around.
Another thing too, we're being conditioned by society to think, even philosophy, for example, they're all thinkers. And they've all been able to use their mind to acquire a certain understanding, but it has nothing to do with acquiring a thinking mind or a logic.
Mhm.
It is the simplicity of being. And that is the truth. That is the truth of being. Ramana Maharshi was very clear in that. See, Ramana Maharshi was so pure that he would walk in the mountain among tigers, among cobras, and he would pet them, and he would make them pets. And also they wouldn't attack him because he was no threat to anything or anyone. It reminds me of one time they were looking for Ramana Maharshi. He was lost in the mountain, you know, Arunachala.
Mhm.
And it was monsoon at the time, so the rain came very, very strong. And I said, oh my God, you know, they were extremely
Worried about him?
worried about him, right? So they all went in search of Ramana Maharshi, and they found him sitting down in the lotus, and the rain was going all over the place, but not hitting him. There was a dry spot where he was. And this is fact. Some people still remember it now, some that have lived long enough. And when he started to walk to come back,
Did the rain, did the sun follow him?
the rain was falling on each outside side of him, not on him.
And that's our decision. So we back to our topic of the power of decision is my own. He'd already decided to be that he wasn't what he mistook himself to be and was in the
That's
natural
right.
state.
Yeah. He developed cancer. It came from his arm. I don't know. Some say it came from the pollution and getting rid of bugs, etc., so that he could breathe it. But anyway, the point is that it came to the doctor said that we have to remove your arm, which is cancerous, in order for you to survive. And he started to laugh. He says, "What for?" He says, "Where can I go? I'm always here. You know, I'm not the body." And anyway, so it is this seeing, this knowing, that is the key. So what was the topic? The topic was
The power of decision is my own.
the power of decision is my own.
Yeah. It goes on to say, you may believe that this position is extreme and too inclusive to be true. Yet, can truth have exceptions? If you have the gift of everything, can loss be real? It's a very interesting statement because when I first read it, it says, so it's a question. And these are sort of meditative, the exercises give you these meditative questions to honestly ask yourself. It says, if you have the gift of everything, can loss be real? Well, when I read that, my ego jumps in and it says, but I don't believe I was given the gift of everything.
Yeah.
But the question didn't say what you believe, it asks you this question. And so
That's right.
if you have the gift of everything, can loss be real?
And
No.
the everything is I am.
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
I am this or that.
Yeah.
I am.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It says, can part of peace be pain? Can part of joy be grief? Of course not, right?
Right.
Can fear and sickness enter into a mind where love and perfect holiness abide? And we're going back to Ramana now. We were talking about Ramana. They said he had cancer. They said he was sick. As far as he was concerned,
He was
nothing.
concerned, he was nothing.
Because he
yeah.
wasn't the body. He was
That's right.
everything.
That's right. He was not the body. Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess there's a difference between being weak and being not a threat.
But what does it mean being weak? See, being weak means giving into the ego. That's what weakness is. And forgiving your ego is strength. That's the power.
So you're actually forgiving yourself for getting
So you're-
caught.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you forgive yourself for being caught. The moment you forgive yourself for being caught, already you've taken a giant step, not a small step, a giant step towards being. Not being this or being that, being. The perfection of being is all the time attained by being, which is forgiving. Forgiving is so, my God, so beautiful. So beautiful. And the Course says that, what does it say? Is that forgiveness is like there was an ancient hatred
Oh,
become a present.
yeah, the
a
most
present
holy
heaven.
place on earth,
Yeah.
earth is where an ancient hatred becomes a present love.
That's right.
And that's you.
And that's what the forgiveness
That's
is.
right. When you're not your ego, instead of living in a conflicting world, you now live
Mhm.
in love.
Yeah, that's right.
You can make that transformation anytime, right?
And it like that.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, yes. All you have
The
to
power is
be completely convinced that you are not who you think you are. If you believe you are who you think you are, then you're caught. Then you cannot change anything because you think you're something. You see, like I used to think that I am Burt and structured a certain way. I am an Aquarian, born February 14th. I am this, I am this, I am that. My goodness, all that good stuff. And then you come to the point where you realize, especially I realized that when I had an out of body, I am no one and nothing, and yet everything, you know. And the moment that becomes, you know, you experience the light, things that transform. Now, according to the studies made in out of body experiences, there's been 10 million, right? Something.
People who claim
People who have had,
Yeah.
people have had
near-death experiences.
near-death experiences. Yeah, they've been revived, and
So they've all touched this
and
oneness.
they touched this oneness that they are, and immediately the first thing they did is they quit their job, especially if they didn't like it, and they became teachers, this or that, whatever, serving other people, or yeah.
It's interesting. A lot of people, it seems, I don't know if it's the case, but it seems like a lot of people who have a near-death experience go into hospice. They like to hang around.
That's true too. Yeah.
Because nobody else wants to listen to the good news, but somebody who thinks
Yeah,
they're sick or
yeah.
dying is very open to it.
Mhm. But there's again, okay, what the
Mhm.
world does is, but if you go to hospice, you're not allowed to talk about death. Believe it
Crazy
or not,
things.
the people are dying.
They think they're dying.
They're thinking, yeah, and then you hold their hand and you want to love them. You want to tell them the truth. That there's no death. Death does not exist, but they believe it, and they're not supposed to tell them that there's no death. But things are changing.
Yeah, I think it's changing
eventually,
quite a
yeah,
lot now.
Yeah, yeah,
Very rapidly.
yeah. So we're getting wiser and wiser, and we're entering the light of day, so to speak. I do believe, and this is my belief, okay, I don't want to be, that the Course in Miracles is the greatest book ever written. ever written, because it was written by Jesus himself, you know. So I'm so in love with the book that reading anything else is a waste of time for me. Yeah.
Except maybe your own books. Some of your own books are pretty good, especially Perfection of Awareness is pretty good.
Bless you.
And Burt, Suzy, you think Ramana's teaching is in total, compatible with the, totally compatible with the course?
Oh yeah.
I would say so.
Oh yes. As a matter of fact, and this is a fact which I'm not too happy to admit, but it has happened to me. It was such a long story. I had my own center in Toronto, you know, and it's called the Foundation.
Unit Trust.
Unit Trust Foundation. Yeah, anyway, and I had people working for me there, and I had my own television show. And then one day, a woman out of the blue was watching my show on television. I had my own television show also. And then she kept watching me, was always there present to see. But one day, she never appeared. I had missed seeing her, and I called to see if she's okay. And then she said that her mother won't let her come. She was only 22 at the time, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, and she was in love with me, but it's not that I wasn't. It's just that I had my own center, and I loved the people I worked with, and they were all women, you know, and we all got along great. But then she thought that I was in love with her. I said, I miss you too. So, and she lived quite far out of town. She got into her car. She comes from a very rich family. And she came to my place and she jumped on me and we made love. The people saw it, were shocked. Anyway, to make a long story short, I'm not happy saying this, but it's happened, right? You know the story.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's how I lost the work that I was doing. And so she traveled with me. I've made quite a bit of money from the television show that I've had. But when I told her that I'm not going back to Toronto anymore, I was working at UBC, that shock affected her whole body. She went into, her arm broke out into eczema and everything else. And I knew that she wanted to go back to Toronto. Her mother called her and she said, tell Burt that I'm sick. And I never saw her again. When I didn't see her again, what I had done with her is that I gave her my bank account, you know, the checking account, everything else. She was using it freely. We were out traveling. When she went back to Toronto, all my money was gone, all of it. And I lived like a bum for a week in Toronto. And I learned all the secrets of how to eat from the people leftovers. And it was a big lesson for me because from rich to, it's not that I was rich, but I was comfortable, very, and I was without money, nothing. I was absolutely nothing. And then one day, it was, I think, on the 8th day, one of the girls that was a student tried getting her PhD at UBC, where I was working, believe it or not, as professor there, she looked at me and she said, Burt? She
didn't recognize you?
No, I had a beard. I was dirty. My shoes were stolen, and then I was living with a few guys that lived in the street. And so I said, yeah, she started to cry and she told her friends and they gathered together at UBC and they pulled some money together and they took care of me and they brought me to a place on 7th Avenue, and I said, I'm in love with Vancouver. I don't want to move away except Vancouver. And as we were walking around, we saw bachelor apartment for rent. And we stopped there, and they got me the apartment downstairs in this building. And that I got in, and then I did something which was a lie.
It wasn't a lie.
This was it in a way, because you see, the question is, was Ramana Maharshi teaching the same as the Course?
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
that's what I'm getting.
That's what we're getting to.
That's what
Okay.
I'm getting at, right? All I knew was Ramana Maharshi. I loved him with all my heart and still do. And so when they found me the place, they said, how am I going to earn a living now? Well, at one point, I was there was a
Party on a yacht.
party on a yacht,
And you got invited.
and I got invited for free because I knew the woman that put the ad, and they wanted more men than they had. And so I got there free. So when we sat down to eat all together, we were talking about, what do you do for a living? And everybody said, well, I'm a real estate agent, I am this and I am that, and I'm a banker. And when it came to my point, I said, I'm a Course in Miracle teacher,
See?
which was not the truth. But I had bought the course, and I was always impressed, but I didn't understand it. I read it, but I thought, what is this? You know? But I loved, I knew that the book was something special. And I kept it. And even when I was in the street, I kept it in my car, you know, which was parked in the street. And I knew nothing about it. So I thought, well, I told the people where I'm going to be, and they came in to give a talk on the Course in Miracles. And which, of course, I didn't know about the Course, but I started teaching them about Ramana Maharshi's teaching. And Ramana Maharshi's teaching was very, very strong in love and fear. Also, love and fear are the two opposites. Either it's love or it's fear. Fear is nothing wrong with fear. Fear is a need for love. That was so beautiful. So if you get to know your fear and don't run away from it, you'll find that all you ever want is love. And which also became part of my 4 unknown facts of reality. Later on. But anyway, so where do we go from here? Oh yeah. And then there were about 10 people that came to listen to me talk down in the
To teach a Course in Miracles.
Course in Miracles, yeah, which was in a very small room. And the people in the building complained, and they said, oh, you're holding a business. And I said, no, we're just meeting friends. They said, well, make sure you close the door because they kept the door open. Anyway, the following week, we had so many people that we couldn't accommodate everyone, but it kept on increasing all the time, until what happened after the Course in Miracles? And then I turned to satsang. I started teaching satsang then, you know, which was based on Ramana Maharshi's teaching. But the more I talked about satsang and the more I gained insights, you know, realizations, the closer it became that Ramana Maharshi and the teachings of the Course are exactly the same.
Same thing, exactly.
Same thing, exactly the same, yeah. And so that impressed me. Right now, I'm in love with the book, Course in Miracles. I think it's the greatest thing ever written. And I do believe that Jesus wrote it. I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that he wrote it. And and so that's it.
See, there's no time, so you weren't lying.
That's right.
So, yeah. So Ramana Maharshi and Course in Miracles.
So in a way,
Was that?
go ahead, Burt.
You asked a
Finish.
question?
Go ahead. Please finish your sentence. Yeah, please finish your sentence.
I don't know.
I'll go ahead and ask you a question, Wei. You remember what you were
No,
saying?
I was just gonna say, Burt, I was gonna say you told a very good story, and I think the answer that I'm getting is, I think, yeah, I totally agree that they are saying the same thing. And to me, the Course in Miracles is almost as an attempt to amalgamate Western and Eastern because Ramana really is from Eastern wisdom and
Right.
Yeah,
roots.
yeah.
And I think Corey kind of encompasses this.
Yeah, but if it does, it's because
paths
the
of wisdom.
Eastern teachings are very similar.
Mhm.
But the Course in Miracles is written specifically by Jesus himself, which follows no system, no East, no West, nothing. But it happens to be similar because,
Yeah,
again,
I
a
understand.
lot of the teachings of the East are teaching the truth, really, egolessness, and so on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, the course just
I agree.
uses, the course uses Christian terms, but they have completely different definitions.
Totally different definitions. Yes, yes, yeah.
Because because I know some people from Eastern cultures, and they find Course in Miracles as a underism.
As a what?
Like Taoism put on a,
Oh,
it's undercover Taoism,
Yeah.
they call it.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Gary Renard said,
Undercover.
yeah, Gary
Really?
Renard said
Ah.
the only two people ever got the course and they were both Buddhists. I mean, that was a joke.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
more and more people are getting it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They were just saying is that they use what Christianity terminology, but
Mhm.
everything it explains in it is very similar, or
Yeah.
even
Non-duality.
The Christian terminology is
Same with it,
used
yeah.
because, again, the word Jesus was all part of the whole thing. So it was used, I think, to,
Much of it is a correction. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
because there's actually something like 600 biblical quotes. But what he taught was pure non-duality. It just wasn't understood back then.
Yes.
So
Yeah, people don't understand non-duality. No religion does, actually. You see, because non-duality means there is no you or me as we know ourselves. Everything is just non-duality. Duality is the only thing we know. Duality means that there's opposites, night and day, good and bad, right and wrong, fear and love. And truth, there is only one truth. And that one truth is non-duality, called love, the perfection of love. Love is all that the only truth there is, love. And you learn love by many different ways. And the course is all about that. But eventually, as you get to know the course, becomes simpler and simpler and simpler and simpler.
Another thing Gary Renard says is the course is really 6 pages of the truth repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because we're so dense. It takes
Totally.
time to get it.
Yeah.
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 When I start to read, everything seems like I'm reading the same thing, right? Every sentence you read from the course seems like you're reading the same over it.
It's just trying it because your ego shuts sentences down so quickly. It tries to use a slightly different version of the same sentence so that your ego can't jump in and shut it down.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We come
Just
to
yes,
5:03.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's right. It's after 5. Okay. Well, it's been a very unusual session today, but
It's been fun.
it's been fun, though. Yeah. 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 I'd like to say hello to my
It's been
friend.
great. Thank you, everyone.
What's his name?
Touraj.
Touraj.
Hi, Touraj.
Yeah.
Touraj is good.
Raj.
Hi,
Yeah,
Laura.
yeah,
Hi, Chris. Hi,
Yeah.
Shayla.
I love the guy.
And thanks for coming, and we hope to
Yes,
see you
yes.
again. And we hope you liked today's
Yes.
topic on who has the power.
Right.
It's ours.